Hatep Ma'at, welcome. That means I'm offering you truth. I am Asnafrika, and I'm going to be sharing the energy reading for this cycle. So, if you're here, I want you to know that this is a fated connection. So somehow there's a message here for you, even if you're not coming in the exact moment of this particular moon cycle. This cycle is actually really unique because it is a cycle that is during eclipse season. So we've officially entered into eclipse season. The new moon just passed on the 2nd of September, and it's going to climax with our lunar eclipse on the 17th of September. And following that, we're going to have our equinox. So the autumn equinox is going to be officially on the 22nd, and that is when the sun, Ra, enters into Ma'at. So I'm really excited about just this energy, and it's really optimistic, especially considering some of the more heavier cycles that we've been moving through. So it is definitely a more optimistic energy. So I'm excited to share with you all. It's going to be based on the ancient African symbolism of our ancient ancestors, the Kemetic sacred science. Most people may know as ancient Egypt. Shout out to Brother Omawali who's here live. Welcome. I tried to give a little bit of advance notice, but I be navigating eternity. Speaking of which, navigating eternity is our accountability and time or energy management medicine. And we are also going to be opening up our enrollment for Navigating Eternity for the autumn quarter, which is going to be October, November, and December. So if you're interested in learning about that, just stay tuned. Make sure that if you are not subscribed, that you do also hit the notification bell so you can get notified when we have different live stream schedule. But we are going to have a webinar for Navigating Eternity. So once that's scheduled, it will be out there. And if you're interested in joining our accountability community for the autumn, then you can do so. Okay. So I want to go ahead and get started. Today, I am going to share the entire reading. I'm not going to split it into the extended version, the MILITIA exclusive option. Usually, I only share the first 3 cards in the 10 card spread. It's a pyramid reading, but today I'm sharing it with everyone. But I do want to still invite those of you who are interested in going deeper into the sacred science or having more personal accountability. The Tehuti Militia is for really high-level souls that are here reincarnating into this journey of healing. And if you feel aligned with any of the messages that you've been seeing on our channel, then you can go to tehutima'at.org/about if you want to get more information about Tehuti Ma'at. So I'm not going to go too much into that because I would like to dive into our reading today. So as I said, this moon cycle has a lot of really beautiful energy. It is an energy dynamic that is going to unfold through adversity or processing adversity. So it shouldn't feel as heavy this cycle, especially for those who are in our collective. And that's because of the energy that we've been moving through. But we're going to have some really solid, grounded closings and releases this cycle. So some things that have kind of been surfacing up that we feel like, oh, this again, we're going to finally have those releases and really closing those things out. And we're finally going to be ready to rise into the new adventures that lie ahead for us emotionally and physically. So the first card in the reading was actually Set. So if you are watching the recording, please make sure that you pause as I show the cards and write down what comes up for you intuitively. That's the most important thing. I know that the Set card tends to scare people because it literally just doesn't look appealing, right? And it looks like the devil, right? So, and that's because, Set is actually where Satan comes from. Now, in the Christian perspective, because it's more so reduced to a caricature, I want to make sure that we remember that all of the forces and principles in the ancient mystery system is really about forces and elements of nature that express themselves in the world. Some of them are specifically personified and more terrestrial, like we sense them in ourselves, and they move through us in a very physical way through our personalities, and others are more cosmic, so we don't necessarily sense them in the same way, but all of the energies are part of nature and aspects of energy that we can embody. So as I'm doing the reading, just remember this is showing the energy that is present in this cycle that we can work with and that we can move through. So the intention, because you're now becoming conscious of it, is to make sure that you take note of what comes up for you personally, intuitive, specifically for you. So as we move through the cycle, especially as we come on to that full moon lunar eclipse on the 17th, and it's fully illuminated, you can consciously process what it is that you've moved through and see how the energy has unfolded. So when it comes to the energy of Set, usually people interpret it as, the devil, like the evil of the world. And it is that expression, but it's more so neutral or neutralized as gravity, right? It's the aspect of nature that makes things heavy. It's the aspect of nature that is density. It is the aspect of nature that is oppositional, right? It's challenging. And we know that we need gravity, right? Without gravity, we would be floating out in space. So it's a necessary force and principle. Here on this card, it is in the family of Ra, which is the family of the sun. So this is a solar element. It is a necessary component of our solar system. So again, it's important to decompress whatever belief systems and ideas that we have around opposition and around heaviness, density, evil, darkness, right? Death, because that's what Set represents. It's the principle of death and decay from a masculine context. And it's interesting because in the reading, the counterpart or complement of Set, Nebutet, is also in this reading. So excuse me, I feel like I need to cough. So Nebutet is also in the reading, and she is the feminine expression of death and decay. So as we know, we need death and decay in order to have life and regeneration, right? Vitality. And that is expressed by the opposite energies of that's also part of the family of the sun, which is Ast and Asar, the masculine and feminine principles of life and regeneration. So when we're looking at this card as at the top of the reading, at the top of the pyramid, it means that this is the energy that's influencing the entire cycle. Because the card is a 3, it's an energy that is creative. Excuse me. So because this is a creative energy, I want you to think about it in an active context, because masculine energy is active. So this is active challenging. So this is about facing the density of ourselves, because Set is our lower self, right? Or our lower nature. It represents the lower lands in Kemet. So which was considered upper Kemet because the planet was oriented upside down, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it represented the desert land, right? While Asar, the opposite, was representing the fertile land, right? So we know that without night, there would be no day, right? We know that in this realm, everything has its complementary energy. So the death energy is necessary for life to be relevant, right? The darkness is necessary for the light to be relevant. It gives it purpose. So this card is really symbolizing opposition and strife. It can also represent the element of feeling defeated, right? So it expressing itself at the top of the cycle means I want all of us to be aware and present of what are the things that have been coming up for us that we've been having to face within our own ego and our lower nature. And this is the time to embrace that. Eclipse season is the time where the veil thins and it's easier for the things from the subconscious, right? The underworld to surface up. So we're going to become more and more conscious of those darker elements or our shadow elements, right? The aspects of our lower nature. And when we think about the symbolism in the mythology, Set is the brother of Asar, who is the ruler of the fertile land, but the ruler of Kemet. And out of jealousy, he kills his brother, chops his body up into 14 pieces and spreads it, and takes over the land to rule, right? So this is the element of the ego representing itself, right? And it is the aspect of us that is here to survive, right? And it's all of the aspects of our lower nature. So think about this as the primary opportunity that we have, or eclipse season always is the best time for us to do what is called shadow work, or like to call womb work, going into the unconscious, the subconscious, and becoming conscious. It's a natural rhythm that happens twice a year so that we can process and not only become aware of the things that we're healing through or need healing, have the process to be supported through it so that we can then integrate that and expand ourselves. So that's the natural growth cycle that Netter usually expresses. Okay, so this card is really symbolizing how that energy is going to surface. And I really want you to embrace it, like face your lower nature, and use this cycle to actually examine what are the aspects of yourself that have been revealing themselves, that have made you feel not, not proud, right? And how can you actually face that, acknowledge it, and really recognize what aspects of it need to grow? The only way that Set becomes like a really uncomfortable and problematic expression is when we try to avoid it and we don't honor that energy, when we try to push it to the back and bury it and not face it. So the best thing that you can do is recognize the necessity of this energy. We're all human. We're all here experiencing this process, and we all have a lower nature, and we have a survival instinct that sometimes moves us out of our heart space and heavily emphasizes us in the mind, in the logic. And this is a time where you want to allow that heart-centered energy to let you nurture your lower nature and really just be okay with what you see about yourself and know that you can grow through it. Okay. Brother Omawali said your creativity wants to be expressed. Those sneezes. Yeah, I really do feel that way. I have been definitely clearing out a lot of energy and embracing it. So the next tier, so that was the fire element. So that card set is the guiding principle of the entire cycle that we're moving through. So that's it. Write it down. Face yourself. Make a list. Make a list of all the aspects of your lower nature that you want to face, that you need to face, that are showing themselves to you. Think about how it's coming up through your reflections, through different relationships, right? Because this is a spiritual energy. It's just energy in general, right? And that's what the fire element represents. So it permeates through the entire reading. The second tier that we're looking at right now are the next two cards are the air element. This is the element of the mind. Now, this is really significant because both of the cards on this level is really expressing a growth process that we're having and how we're able to move past something right now mentally. And we just came out of a Tehuti or Mercury retrograde, which usually allows us to really work through and integrate into our minds all of the emotional and spiritual healing that we've moved through. So 4 times a year, we have these retrograde periods with Tehuti or Mercury, which influences the mind so that we can integrate in all of the things that we're moving through. That's part of the order of the universe. So the first card that came up was actually upside down, but I'm going to show it to you right side up. Because it was in reverse, it's really an emphasis placed on this card in particular. Remember to take note of what comes up for you intuitively. Now, to me, this card is really expressing, so it's Mama Nut, which is the night, right? Literally where night comes from, Nut. The house that this card is in is Tepeaun, which is the primordial house. It is the energy that existed before existence, and the number is 2. So this is the twin dynamic, the twin energy, right? The mirrored energy. So the mirror of Nut is Geb, the earth, right? That is the complementary energy. And as you can see, Nut is here birthing the sun. She swallows the sun every night. He moves through the darkness of the chaos of the night and is birthed again every day. So you can look at the symbolism here of this card. And to me, I was interpreting this energy more so as speaking to what the darkness really holds, right? The womb of the cosmos, right? The heavens. And that is within this chaos, right? Like the darkness of this like emotional chaos that the womb represents is mirroring, right? Coming back to that too, the creative potential that's there. That's why it's just like infinite space and it can be whatever. So it's not in order because it's in chaos so that it can be taken into order creatively for you to make of the energy what you will. Right? So this is the mental space that is kind of behind us still having an influence on us now. It's like this emotional chaos that has brought way with it or brought forward with it the opportunity for us to express this creative energy from the emotional intelligence that we've been gaining, right? So she also represents powerful protection. This is a protection of the mind, protecting your psyche. What are the things that you're exposing your mind to? How can you be more intentional about that? Remember, the energy of Set is still influencing this card. So what I'm feeling really strongly about this is it's very important for us to recognize that at some point, Set and Heru, who, if you're not familiar with the mythology, I do want to finish expressing it. After the body of Asar is chopped up into pieces by Set and spread, and he takes over rulership of Kemet, basically taking everything into chaos and destruction and death and desertification, which is fine with him, right? Because when you think about it energetically, that energy is that energy, right? So it's not going to feel like there's anything wrong with death and decay. That's its nature. So the more death and decay there is, the better, right? But what happens is Ast and Nebetet, the wife of Asar and Set, come together to find the pieces of Asar's body and put it back together and bandage him. And Ast does the ritual over his body. She is impregnated. This is the expression of the Immaculate Conception. And because they hadn't had a child, they mourned through the process. So Nebetet, the sister of Ast, helps her mourn her husband's death. They put the pieces of the body back together, and as he resurrects to impregnate her, and this is a spiritual, this is not literal, right? Think about this spiritually, bringing the pieces back together, right? The one piece that was missing, the henenum, the phallus, right? The erection that is then created out of sand or clay or wood, stone, so many different interpretations. But she fashions the erection, places it over his body, and the ritual shows that she is then turned into a sparrow, or her body turns into a sparrow. She's over his body and impregnated. It's actually a very beautiful scene at the Temple of Heteru in Dendera. If you ever get a chance to go to Kemet, modern day Egypt, please go to the Temple of Heteru in Dendera, and you can actually see this depicted in stone. But essentially, this is where the story of the virgin birth comes from. And Heru is born. Heru is the child of Asar and Ast after he's killed and resurrected, right? So again, the story and the theme is very similar. Heru goes and battles his uncle Set, right? So we talked about this is the energy that came up in the cycle. And eventually he is going to defeat his uncle, and his mother steps in and reminds him that this is a necessary force. You cannot kill your uncle because we need him to have order in our solar system, right? In our galaxy, in our existence. So essentially what I want to get across with this is the whole story is part of symbolizing the energy that we're moving through. It's a process, it's symbolic. So think about, as we're moving through this eclipse cycle, how your lower self needs to be subdued And how can your higher self take reign and authority? You don't want to destroy your ego. You need your ego in order to survive, but you do need to subdue it to the point where it knows, who's directing the ship is your higher self, right? So keep that in mind, because as I see that connecting to this creative potential, I really see this influence of the heavier emotions that we've been processing over the past few moon cycles, how they give way for us to protect our psyche, right? There's so much density. If you don't subdue your lower nature and your lower self, it's going to expose you mentally to spaces that are going to affect your senses, right? Your emotions, right? Your feelings in a way mentally that can cause disease, right? Mental disease. So, in order to align with mental health and this protective force that Newt wants to represent, you want to think about the ways that you can protect your mind, what you're exposing your mind to by subduing your lower nature and your lower desires. But you have to do that through an inner battle. It's not just about suppressing the energy. Remember, I said you want to honor it, you want to face it. Face it face first, and really recognize and contend with what that expression of yourself means. What are its limitations, right? But how can you also honor it without dismissing it and judging yourself for your lower nature? All right, and naturally we're moving into the third card, which is also mental energy. This is the energy that's still like we're moving towards, and this is shy. Remember to take note of what comes up for you. Shy is in the house of Neph, which is the family of the wind. So this is an air element. You can kind of see the air surrounding the wheel of destiny that's behind Shy. And the number is 7. 7 being the number of divinity and how divinity is expressed. We know we have 7 days in a strong or a week. We know that we have 7 main colors in the light spectrum, 7 main energy centers, 7 main harmonic tones. So these are the ways that energy or divinity expresses itself in the physical world, right? It's our senses, what we see, which is the color spectrum, and also how we move, right? Which is like our measurements of the days, right? The weekly cycles, or the strongly cycles, as we like to put it, and our sound, right? How we hear, our auditory sense. So the tones of nature. So this card, Shy, is all about destiny. Shy is literally destiny. In this placement here, what it's expressing about what the energy of this moon cycle is going to be mentally is about things coming back around, right? We're always moving towards our destiny, and it's expressed as a circle to really express the aspect of its eternal nature. Like you can't escape your destiny, essentially, right? Your destiny just is. And there's no ending, there's no beginning, right? The energy of Shy is also expressing a turn of luck for the better. It's interesting because in previous readings I've done, you might have noticed that some of these cards had come up, but in different positions. So the energy is raising in its influence because we've been moving towards it. Remember, nothing just happens. Everything happens in a continuum. So it's not that the energy of this cycle just is right now. It's a continuation of the influence of the cycles that we just moved through and the cycles we're moving towards. So that's essentially what Shy also represents, right? And Shy is a turn of luck for the better. As I said, it's also freedom from bondage. So I like to think about this in the context of the other cards that I already shared, because we're being freed mentally from thoughts and ideas that have held us back in the past. We're transcending our previous limitations. That's what Newt represented. And we're moving towards freedom, freeing ourselves. And there's an element of luck that comes with that. So it's a very positive, optimistic energy. You definitely want to align with and embrace this energy, because it's an opportunity for you to really expand your mind and release things that have been holding you back mentally. Okay. Now we're moving into the next tier on the pyramid, and that is the water element. So again, we started with fire, Set, the adversity and the density, right? Facing our ego, facing ourselves. And we moved into the air, which was the mental energy. And there's this energy of being able to transcend and move past things that have been limiting us in the past, so that we can free ourselves from the bondage of past thought patterns and ideas, so that we can move towards our destiny and really experience the optimistic turn of energy and mindset, right? So our mentality is moving towards a more positive direction. The water element is about our emotions. So once the energy permeates us mentally, it expresses itself emotionally, right? Through the water element. The first card here was actually upside down, but I'm going to show it to you right side up. It is Shu and Tefnut. Okay. Now, remember, note what comes up for you intuitively. It's a number 2 card again. So the mirrored energy, and you can actually see it here with this twin dynamic between these complementary forces. These are forces of the atmosphere, of the element of air, of the atmosphere. It is the dry air, but it's also the moist air, right? The moisture of the atmosphere. That's what Tefnut is. Shu is the masculine, and Tefnut is the feminine. Sometimes Tefnut is also depicted with a lioness mask, representing her energy, like this feline, like powerful energy. But it is the energy of moisture. So to me, I was seeing this card expressing itself with emphasis, because it was upside down, as experiencing emotional codependency and really being able to, or needing to, flip that over. There have been ways that we've been exposed to what has been limiting us, and a lot of that has been through attachments. Because this card, when it's upright, represents the attraction of opposites harmonically, right, or harmoniously, and a beautiful like partnership and synchronization of energy, the beneficial partnership or union. Because it was upside down, I think it's important to recognize how to turn codependent emotional dynamics into healthy, beneficial partnerships that are whole, right? And think about this energetically. It doesn't necessarily have to express itself as a physical dynamic, because remember, this is the emotional element, but there may be some emotional attachments and codependencies that have been exposing themselves. And we have the opportunity to really balance the polarities, which were expressed in the previous cycle. And the next card is actually the center of the reading. So it's what connects the I don't know. I see your message here, lost the stream. I don't know what you mean. I hope the stream is still going. But the energy of this card is the connection point between our earthly and our spiritual lives, right? It's the heart of the reading, the center of the reading, still influenced by that energy of Set, of gravity, of the ego. And I don't know. I don't know if you're saying on my side, you see me now. I don't know. It's never cut out for me. So I thought it was recording this entire time. So if anyone else who's here live wants to let me know and make sure that you can see and the stream is working, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to continue because I see that it's still saying the stream is going. So this card, connecting our earthly and spiritual lives, is the card of Rananet. Again, the number 2. So we have a huge emphasis on complementary energies, the twin energies, the mirrored energy. I think that's because a lot of the energy that's surfacing right now, and that's going to continue to express itself through this eclipse season. We have the solar eclipse coming up on October 2nd, and that energy is specifically dealing with Ma'at, which is also known as Libra, and that is specifically dealing with our one-on-one partnerships and relationship dynamics. So remember that also the South Node is currently in Ma'at. So there's a lot coming up around our past relationship dynamics and one-on-one connections with people. So there may be past relationship matters that are resurfacing to be addressed, to be looked at, examined. How can there be growth? What ways can you grow in partnership? What have your relationships reflected to you? So as I keep seeing that two energy, I feel like there's a huge emphasis on the mirroring. Remember that the energy expresses itself in all forms and ways in life. You want to be attentive to how it's expressing itself. And mostly it's going to be mirrored through our reflections, which are our relationships and the people that we attract into our lives. So just think about that part. And the card Rananet is in the house of Neph, the family of the wind. The wind also brings change. And as I said, there was a change, a turn of the tide in the positive direction, right? So when we're thinking about the wind, or even in Yoruba, it's Oya, right? The winds of change. Now, the card Rananet, as you can see here, she is standing on the cobra, which is the Wajet. It symbolizes our intuitive nature. So how the intuition is pouring out this abundance, this overflow that you can see as she holds these two jars. This is the principle and the energy of lactation, right? Literally the overflow of the milk from the breast that nourished the child, right? Think about the energy of the overflow and the abundance that is released, right? You can literally see like there's gold coins pouring out, life pouring out as she's pouring out Ankh. She's holding the Ankh in both hands. She's holding or wearing the crown of Heteru, the solar disc in the center, and the cow's horns, right? Because as I said, it's the principle of lactation. The cow was symbolizing abundance and magnetism and attraction. A lot of the symbolism was really because when we think of the cow, we think of the female cow and its milk, right? So this is that overflow, that abundance that it's representing. So Rananet is also speaking on our intuitively led emotions and how they're connected to allowing us to have or reap emotional abundance, right? Which can be all of the positive senses and the positive emotions, right? So because it's in the emotional realm, it's in the water realm, think about it in an emotional sense. So thank you, Mind Games. I see that you said it's working for you. So I'm glad the stream's still going. And yeah, this represents good fortune, good luck. Again, that's why I said there's a lot of energy that's optimistic here in this cycle. And I really want us to embrace it because we've been moving through a lot of heavy energy. And sometimes it's easier to let things go when we know the abundance that's ahead of us. So as you face that opposition and that inner battle with your higher and lower self, recognize and remember what's on the other side of that battle so that you don't avoid it and you can truly just face what wants to come up from your shadows. Okay. It's also, wealth, abundance. It can be literal, and because it's connecting our emotional and our physical world. I mean, our spiritual and our physical world through our emotions. So those positive emotions can attract that physically as well. And it's nourishment, right? Because the lactation, the milk is nourishment. This is representing nourishment of the body and the spirit, right? So it's a physical expression as well. So that's health, right? Vitality, strength. Maybe you were not feeling physically well, for a lot of us. For me, I definitely was not feeling well for a while. I'm still like on the recovering side. So I'm welcoming in Rananet. I need this energy. And what is also interesting about the energy of Rananet is in the ancient sacred science, this energy was always grouped with the energy of Shai that I expressed earlier as this energy of luck, right? The wheels of destiny, and Meshkanet. Meshkanet is the principle of the birthing house or the marketplace. And because she represents the birthing house in connection with Rananet, it's all these principles of birth, right? So once the child is born in the Meshkanet, right, in the birthing house, You need the lactation and the nourishment for the baby, right? To breastfeed the baby. But then you also have the wheels of destiny. Meshkinet also represents the child coming through with its specific imprint from the cosmos, right? So the natal chart, the position of all of the celestial bodies when the baby is born, it sets the tone for the destiny of the baby. And the destiny is not something fixed because we have an interplay of free will and destiny. But ultimately, whatever is chosen is in that wheel of what is meant to be, right? And sometimes that can be something difficult to grasp, but whatever aspects of it and layers resonate with you and that you can receive, that's what's meant for you. Okay. And then finally, in the emotional level, the energy we're moving towards is very, very beautiful and positive also is Sinur. Shinur is in the house of Pet. That's the family of the heavens. Again, the number 2, mirrored energy. And I'm seeing this number 2 here, more so speaking as above, so below, because you can see the zodiac wheel or the calendar here, right? And this is based on the 26,000 year calendar. And this literally represents like the cosmos, right? So I want you to just look at this also. Like I see a peace sign. I kind of just see this, I see the wheel again here. Take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively. For me, what came up intuitively was really recognizing how important cosmic insights are and the emotional influence that the cosmos has on us, right? Like, what have been the movements astronomically that have been happening that have been influencing us emotionally? Some of us, if you're part of Tehuti Ma'at, we go over that in the JED sessions that we have. So again, if you're interested in navigating eternity, when we have our accountability community sessions, the JED, we do go over the energy influences of the cycle and it's every other strong. So it's every 14 days. We have that session and we actually go over the energy. So as you're doing your energy management, your time management, you're being aware of what are the energy influences, and you can actually plan and schedule yourself according to the influence of the cosmos. That's literally what this is representing here, right? This is the energy of establishing order, because the cosmos is an expression of order. It's taking the chaos and it's organized into solar systems and galaxies and all of these different elements that are in bodies and points of reference that we use astrologically, right? So it's the cosmos, it's the heavens, it's space. This represents harmony being restored as well. That's what order is, right? And it's also integration and wholeness. It's our opportunity to bring things together. So emotionally, we're going to get to a certain point where we're able to process from that more abundant space, because it's easier, it's lighter, right? We're going to feel lighter enough to actually fully integrate the lessons that we've just learned from the things that we've closed out, and the thought patterns and ideas that we've released, and the limitations that we've overcome, and really be able to integrate and come into a more whole place, right? Those pieces of Asar's body coming back together, right? So now we're moving down into the earth element. And really, we have 4 cards here that are expressing the physical expression of how this energy is going to manifest itself, right? So we're going to start with the first card here, which I had mentioned earlier, which is Nebetet, the counterpart of Set, which was the guiding principle of the reading. It's the number 4, which represents stabilities. Remember, we have 4 cornerstones. We have 4 cardinal elements. We have 4 cardinal directions. I want to say 4 main elements. She wears the palace on her house, on her crown. So that's what that is. It looks kind of like a basket, but it's usually symbolized as the house, or interpreted as the house. And you can see her tears here creating a river. Remember, she is the energy of death and decay. She's also the energy of sorrow, of grieving. This card here was really important. It's in the house of Ra, the family of the sun. So remember, these are necessary elements. These are natural elements and principles and aspects that we experience in life. We experience grief. We experience release. We're moving through a cycle that's going to have a heavy closing, that we're really going to release and be able to move past, so that those things that were limiting us before are not. But in the physical, what we have to begin with is the release process, which is a grieving process, right? It's a mourning process. This is the principle and the energy of mourning, of grieving, right? And it's important to recognize the thing that's been coming up for me a lot around this energy is exorcism. We can't just have emotions stagnantly held in our bodies, in our nervous systems. We have to release it. Doing things like shaking, other different types of like somatic practices can also help you like move energy from the body. Another thing that we like to share, a lot of wisdom that you can use and practically apply if you join the Tehuti militia, whether it's like the last warrior workout that we did for the last moon cycle. I shared about pendiculation and how to actually reset the nervous system through movement. So these are the types of things that we share and that are important that you can look up independently. But releasing, and more so from this energy, which is the energy of grieving and just actually feeling the pain, releasing the pain and crying, letting it out. And that in itself is the release. It is the alchemy. It is the exorcism. Let that energy out of you and allow that energy to literally be the fuel that you need in order to move yourself forward. Okay. So that's Nebetet. And the other thing about Nebetet that I think is very significant is she also represents all aspects of the lower feminine or the dark feminine. She is the energy of the prostitute spirit. She is the energy of promiscuity and all of the things that are considered opposite of Ast, which is considered the energy of purity, right? The maiden or the virgin, like these archetypes. And Nebetet is about looking at what our relationship to deception is. Are we deceiving ourselves? Really being honest with ourselves about the ways that we have been deceiving ourselves. Because this full moon lunar eclipse is in Hatmihit, which is Pisces. Pisces energy can be very much dealing with the world of fantasy and illusion. It can be delusional. So this idea of deception is something that you should examine around not only deception externally, right? Because we had a lot of that mirrored energy. So it could be how we're deceiving others or how we are being deceived. But it can also represent itself internally. So I want you to think about that with all of these energies. They can be expressed simply internally. But it's also about corruption. This can be the exposure in the physical world to aspects of corruption that are being exposed right now. That's one way that I see this energy manifesting in a more practical way, collectively speaking. And then it moves us into the energy of the next card, Ptah. The number 1, the initiation of a cycle, something new. The actual force of creation is what this represents. It's in the family of fire, which is Akhat. And you can look at the symbolism here. That plinth that Ptah is standing on is the plinth of Ma'at. Remember, I said we're moving into the equinox, which is Ma'at season, dealing with equal day and equal night, the full balance of our revolution around Ra, around the sun. And this is expressed through this creative element that Ptah represents. Ptah is like the foundational element of all creation. Ptah is the potter, or works with the potter. It's also an expression of Kanum energy, symbolized by the goat. But both of these energies are usually expressed as the potter who's making form and flesh, right? Following the cosmic law, right? And cosmic order of Tehuti and Ma'at, these cosmic principles of universal law and cosmic order, to create and manifest physical form and turn or materialize the metaphysical into the physical world, right? So that's what Ptah represents. It's the act of creation, taking things from being metaphysical and materializing them. So that's an energy that's having an influence right now in this cycle physically. So there's an energy here that can support in actually creating and manifesting. And because there's so much positive energy and optimistic energy here, you really want to tap into this. It's through your embodiment of the energy that it manifests. So you have to put the creative effort forward to then attract that abundance and that positive energy and that luck that is here at our service. And the next card beautifully is Heru. Again, I already talked about the number 7 being the number of divinity manifest. It's in the house of Ra, again, the family of the sun. Heru, symbolized by the falcon. We see here that the priest in the image has the mask of a falcon. Interestingly, I did see a falcon. This just reminded me. I literally was driving and I saw a falcon swoop down past right in front of the car, the windshield, and literally just hunted. I don't know what it grabbed, and it just swooped off the side of the mountain. And I was like, whoa. And it was so beautiful. But I just remember that as I'm thinking about this right now. So something to process. But he's wearing the double crown of upper and lower Kemet. So this stands for the dominion that he has now taken over Set. Remember, the first card here was Set. So now he's ruling the two lands. He's ruling the higher and the lower self. This is the full integration, right? Remember, I said that card Sonora represented integration and wholeness. So this is our ability to have our higher self integrate with our lower self and be whole. So we're not expressing this like compartmentalized expression and constantly going back and forth from the ego. So keep that in mind, right? Because we know we need both. But if we have our higher self that's guiding us to preserve ourselves, so we're not in survival mode, but we're in ma'at, right? We're in balance, we're in righteousness, we're in morality, we're in our integrity. That's what Heru represents. And Heru is about victory. Heru is the winner. So this card physically represents that expression of victory and overcoming adversity, right? Everything that I said about facing the ego, facing the shadow, facing the lower self is a guaranteed victory. So why not just turn to it and just face it? That's what eclipse season is for. It's not something to be afraid of or shy away from or avoid. It's a gift from the universe, a gift from the creative force, the divine, God, whatever you want to call this force of creation that we are a part of, is literally expressing itself in this moment to support us in facing the parts of ourselves that are the ugliest, the densest, and the things we usually don't want to look at or see. And you're going to see them regardless. So instead of resisting it, flow with the current of the energy and allow it to actually express itself with ease instead of with resistance, right? And struggle. And then finally, the last card is Shishat. They made her very pale, interestingly. Anyway, it is the number 7 again. We got a lot of these repeating numbers in this reading. It's in the house of Pet, the family of the heavens. And you can see her wearing the initiation garb of the leopard skin or the cheetah. I believe this is leopard skin. And she has the pencil in hand, right? Because she is the scribe. She's one of the counterparts of Tehuti, the energy of wisdom and knowledge, because she represents literature, building, the architect, constructing our plans. She has the 7-point star overhead, again, manifesting divinity into the physical through literature, writing. Huge energy influence right now supporting us in writing. But literature in itself, it could be through reading. This another way you can align with this energy. Reading, writing, designing, creating plans. This is a very, very powerful energy that's influencing right now. It's very positive because this card is about receiving this blessing of Shishat, right? This divine inspiration to express through writing or learn through reading. but it's also about building and creating. There's a force here that's supporting the construction of plans for future success. Very optimistic energy here. It's about linking our energies to a larger plan, right? Write out the plan, write out the clarity and all of the things that you're receiving right now. That's the best way to align with this energy. And as I said to you before, if you're not familiar with Navigating Eternity, I believe you can actually go to navigatingeternity.com, and it'll link to the page for the JED, but that's not necessarily going to direct you to the information session that I'll do during the webinar. But if you search Navigating Eternity on the Tehuti Ma'at YouTube channel, you will be able to see our previous webinars if you want to get more information now before it comes out. But it is something I'm so proud of. It is a beautiful expression of the growth that I've had over the last decade. I was nurturing Navigating Eternity for 8 years before I birthed it, as I was working on my perfect planner design that would work for people who have more of a complex mind or who have very expansive visions or missions in this lifetime. And essentially what it developed into is this beautiful medicine that can support us in transitioning out of the Greco-Roman time paradigm, right? That Setian age, and moving into Heru, right? The cosmic clock, restoring our balance and our connection to nature by looking at natural cycles and systems and figuring out how you can manage your energy according to those natural cycles. So that's what Navigating Eternity teaches you, and it's in the form of a online course, right? So if you want more information about that, you can always also just text or email us. You can also go on tehutimaa.com, and there's a section for new volunteers, and you can actually put in your availability. Mostly people usually sign up to volunteer for Tehuti Community Garden in Brooklyn, but that's also a way that you could join the mailing list. So right now, I think the best way, if you do want more information, you can contact us at grow@tehutimat.org. You can also text us at 646-883-MAAT. I do want to thank you for being here with us today. I hope that you can take whatever has resonated with you and carry it forward with you throughout this cycle so you can consciously move through these energies. And I want to also ask you, if you enjoyed the reading today, please like the video, subscribe, and as I said, hit the notification bell so that way you get notified when we do a live stream. We do have a couple of live streams coming up. We do have our Think Panel event. If you've watched some of the other Think Panels, we're bringing back a Think Panel this month. It is going to be on the 22nd, and it is Think Beyond Two Evils. We're going political, and we're going to talk about how this political paradigm is siphoning our energy and exactly what ways that we can actually look at it in a way that is empowered. So if you want, stay tuned for that. And I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys have a beautiful eclipse cycle this month, or this moon cycle and the next, as we complete the eclipse season, next moon cycle. And happy equinox. And I'll see you soon. All right. Power.